mode, still light mode. Second review of the night, SK Telecom T1 versus Sandbox Game 1. I think the obvious question here is, PapaSmithy, why? Like, why are we reviewing this series? You cast it. Fair question. The thing that I got from game number 1 here between SKT and Sandbox was that SKT fell far behind in the early game. Sandbox had a lot of item spikes to use, but while casting, you don't get to pause and rewind. So it wasn't clear why Sandbox Gaming weren't able to close the game. From watching it, my first instinct watching was that SKT were very smart about defensive macro and the ability to slow down a game, which is a notable thing for them because, honestly, they've been a team that's been getting most of their wins by trying to go for proactive mid-game champions, getting their ganks off, and ending the game before the enemy team can scale. So the fact that they scaled up, or at least slowed down the pace of the game, is a new look for them. Meanwhile, Sandbox has been one of our best early games. In fact, these were the 2 best early game teams, I would say, in the LCK over the course of spring, and yet they couldn't close it out. So from a Sandbox perspective, was it that the enemy team was just able to understand some of their tendencies and slow down the game in a smart way that they just couldn't close, i.e. can teams learn from how SKT set up defensively, or did they just not use their tools well, is kind of what I'm looking for SKT versus Sandbox. 28 games, I believe. No, 30 games of Lee Sin between these 2 teams. Clid, big Lee Sin aficionado. Khan's champion pool is something to discuss. Notice the big shift that SKT have made in freeing up Khan post 9.4. Sorry, the Games of Legends takes a little bit of time to load, but that is our stats website of much favor. Come on, Korean internet, don't let me down. Let's try again. So, since the start of the month, i.e. when the patch change came in, Khan has gone Riven, Fiora, Vlad, Jace, Riven, Aatrox, Fiora, Vlad, Aatrox, Kennen, Ryze, Aurelia, Fiora, Vladimir. So, Khan on carries, PogChamp is kind of what we're seeing. A lot more carry play, undefeated on Fiora, for example, as you'll notice. Been happy to go for the top lane mages as well. SKT have just done a really good job of playing around pressure. That has been the identity of SKT in the best games they've played, is a lot of time playing around early game priority and pushing through there. And meanwhile, it's kind of been Faker, who recently has been on Lissandra duty, Lissandra Galio. So Lissandra Galio, kind of the blind pickable mid lanes is what they do with Faker. Meanwhile, Khan gets to run away on his champions. Teddy and Mata do their thing, and Clid plays Lee Sin. That's kind of the SKT we're seeing. And honestly, when those matchups work out, they've looked really fearsome doing it. I really like SKT early game. But Sandbox Gaming are also a very impressive early game team. I think Summit is very much having a rookie split, and he's not a rookie. But I guess he never played on Afrika, so he's not an LCK system rookie, but he's just never played before this season. He's very reminiscent of what we saw from Khan in 2017 summer, right? When Khan came back from the LSPL. He had played in Champions before on Prime Optimus, but, renamed from Hanlabong to Khan, played carries, and everyone was like, this guy's way better than we thought. And Summit, a player who sat behind Keen the entire year, has also been one of these huge unsung heroes. It's been Summit and OnFleek, the big kind of MVP getters on the side of Sandbox after Ghost's early season games. And they've both done it through aggressive picks and playing the early game well. I feel like Summit probably has the most turret plates of any player. I know that's not something that we've been keeping track of, but they've been very smart at getting big early game leads. And once they got their macro pretty on point, come to week 3 or 4 of the season, Sandbox have been really good. Sandbox have been a really pleasure to watch as a team. So this was supposed to be a really competitive game where the early game victor closed the game, and we know that's not the way it went. So that's why it's time to review SKT versus Sandbox and see if we can learn. Are we going to err on the side of SKT being smart about slowing down the pace of the game, or is it Sandbox making mistakes? Because in my head, from watching it, first impression was that SKT's defensive macro was something that was big for them, and that's something they can return to in best of fives when they play against some great teams. If it's just Sandbox making mistakes, much harder for SKT to salvage an early game like they were able to here. There's going to be a couple of moments of double Papa, but I'm pretty quiet in the play-by-play 1.5 times speed, so... Double Papa, someone's dream. Anyone out there want double Papa? The Papa's podcast is real over here. Anyway, we can zoom through picks and bans. So, red side bans. Again, Jace ban makes sense. Can't allow that to be run as a first pick. Maybe we'll be off, right? Because Callista's not being changed. LeBlanc's not being changed, but I feel like red side bans are going to be so required, and SKT and blue side bans on 9.6 should have at least one free spot, and then just it seems unlikely that there's going to be 3 strong champions available on the par of what we're thinking might take over drafts. But Sandbox bans are very, very vanilla. Recently, we've had the interesting shift away from Zoe first pick, as I guess the Zoe comps are feeling less confident with how they fill out as a 5-man unit, because it was Zoe over LeBlanc at every moment, and thus Zoe bans being recommended. But now LeBlanc bans are being locked in more often than not. Lissandra's up, so of course Lissandra will be locked in. No excitement there. So Sandbox give up Lissandra, and when it comes to answers to Lissandra, there really isn't any right now in the meta. There are champions who do well against Lissandra in lane. I think of Zoe does very, very well. Swain does really, really well, even though the Swain game we had in the LCK was pretty awful. It's been a big pick around, though. LEC loving the Swain into Lissandra. There's a lot of stuff that if it can side lane against Lissandra and take TP, works against Lissandra just fine. Corki works as well, but Corki comps are too hard to execute. So because of that, the fact that nothing is slamming it in lane means that Lissandra first pick and its ability to reliably play make and teleport, the win rate, it's called win Sandra for a reason in Korea. It's not just bad English, it's the sign that Lissandra's been super reliably picking up victories, and none of the laning counters are beating Lissandra with Aftershock hard enough to justify it not being first pick. And Lissandra top flex has happened quite a lot. There's been quite a lot of top flex Lissandra happening in recent memory. So just not enough ability to punish it means that it's the way to go when it comes to first picks here. But from here, the draft goes in an interesting spot. Sandbox go for a strong red side duo lane. In previous metas, be Ezreal Tahm Kench, but nowadays you want something that can win lane hard, that can turret dive, or that can extend the lead, that even 2v2 can do well. So they go for Lucian Braum, which we saw in our first VOD review of the night. So no surprise there. SKT go for the Vladimir here. And I think Vladimir as a first pick is something we've talked about. Vladimir's balance level is something we've talked about. But Vladimir is double mages taken in first round as not necessarily Khan on a counter pick winning lane early game. Against some teams, I think Vlad early for SKT is very powerful. If they're not a team that does a lot in the early to mid game, I think you can just take Vlad as a power pick and just be happy on Khan in almost any matchup. But Summit is a player you should respect like that. So there is a degree of boldness to the Vladimir draft in this particular spot, because Sandbox hadn't shown anything yet. So we're going to wait and see where they go. They just take Jarvan. Small chances top lane, but I feel like you get pounded in this matchup pretty early. So I wouldn't like to see the Jarvan top side. We're thinking on Flicks on it for playmaking as an answer to Lee Sin, and with their effective champion pools, there wasn't a lot open to be considered elsewhere, so that part is fine. SKT hadn't taken support, so going to take Tahm Kench here. Tahm Kench, Ezreal banned away. Remember that they ban Ezreal, Tahm Kench. They ban both, and the reason they do this is that these are the no interaction bot lane champions. So if you pick Lucian Braum and the enemy picks Ezreal Tahm Kench, there's more of a chance that you can't kill them with a jungle gank. But if you double ban Ezreal and Tahm Kench, you're running out of champions who can lane 2v2 against Lucian Braum and survive the right all-in, especially with a jungler presence. So I actually like this approach. Normally, what teams have banned one or the other, but this is saying, we're going to kill you bot lane. And then they lock in mid lane Galio to say, and we're going to do it a lot. So this is basically SKT. there's no wins to be taken bot lane when it's Lucian, Braum, Galio, Jarvan. Like, this is the epitome of, like, well, we're boned. Like, there's no way to win this with this approach. So I love that Sandbox did something in the draft. They said, we got Lucian Braum. Let's get the best of Lucian Braum. So Tahm Kench is gone. Ezreal is gone. Mid lane has a global. And Jarvan is the most reliable gank. So at this point, there's limited options for what SKT can draft in this case. So they take Xayah. I think Xayah here is an excellent pick. Xayah's the champion I always forget exists. Because Xayah Rakan was nerfed. Okay, I don't even think about Xayah. But Xayah, just as a champ, I think is super undervalued. Because there's a lot of picks you see in Assassins in the meta. And Essence Reaver got buffed. 3-item build with IE. Very, very strong. And all those picks you see in Assassins, you're lifting off through them. So you can go a full damage build, survive, and you lane pretty well. You have good lane assistance, and your damage is huge. So I think Xayah, like, was a really smart pick here that I never think of. I'm like this. I'm like, all right, this was gone. I mean, you could Tristana, like, Caitlyn's a thing, but no one wants to play her in Korea. And then Xayah kind of hits me on the head. I'm like, yes, beautiful, perfect pick. From there, Mata goes Rakan. And I think this is mostly just for synergy. Backline access against the lineup, you see, like, sometimes you just have to draft Rakan to get to the back to kill people. And it helps Vladimir Lissandra, but you already had Vlad Lissandra, so I think it's mostly just these two champions have that symbiotic relationship that allows them to get through laning phase. It's not an awe-inspiring Rakan spot, but then you think, okay, what else do you take here? And if you go a range support, you die, so you can't take a range support. Melee support's available. Alistair doesn't feel great. Like, it's a sucky spot, right? I don't even know if anyone has a suggestion for a better support pick in this spot. Like, I guess you can try and go like Soraka and just dominate lane. Doesn't feel great. Morgana? The enemy team has so much crowd control, but I wonder if Morgana would have been better on 9.5 here. That's the one where you're like, maybe Morgana. I think Leona's too risky. I don't see Leona in this game, but I think Morg is the one that they could have thought about. But I don't hate Rakan in this spot. Like, there's not a lot better. And then it's pick your poison into Vladimir as a top laner here, and they go with the Aurelia, which I think can win the lane really, really hard. I think this is a lane that's tricky for Vlad to play into. Akali confidence not there for Summit. It would have been interesting if we had 2 games in a row we had the Akali in this spot. I think Aurelia makes it the sort of comp where if Aurelia can run over Vlad, you can take over the jungle and then get picks with all your pick tools. That's how you win this one, because you don't get siege in the other parts of this game. You already cemented Lucian, Braum, Galio, Jarvan. You can't siege with those champions. They're very short range. You don't necessarily want to team fight after 30 minutes either, because the enemy team has Vlad. But this is the sort of draft where if Aurelia gets a lead, or if you just have a way to get favorable lane assignments, you have so much pick CC that you're going to be able to close the game eventually. Meanwhile, SKT are mostly waiting on things. 3 items, Xayah. Vladimir hitting 3-4 items, like we mentioned in our first review. The Aurelia is still in Korea unexplored. We don't see a lot of Aurelia in Korea. She's still kind of finding her foothold as a champion, and just how many comps she still works in after the rework. So we zoom into the start here. And again, if you're joining us late, the main review question is, we know Sandbox gets way ahead. Is the game not being closed by Sandbox an SKT thing, or Sandbox is the main learning thing? But obviously along the way we'll have things to pick up and learn about 2 of our teams that for most of the season were entrenched in top 3. So in the early laning phase, Galio does Galio things, gets poked out. The Aurelia takes some time to get priority, but should have it very, very early in the laning phase. Probably level 2, 3 onwards is doing fine. And Lucian Braum, there was kind of a pick your poison issue for SKT and what to deal with the Lucian Braum. they eventually went for the Zyrakan. So red buff into Scuttle, unsighted. This is a really cool path, and this is very MLXG in the old days, but there's very proactive jungle pathing here. They know the enemy jungler started topside, and Lee Sin doesn't go big buff to big buff very often, so Unfleek goes blue into red, which is the ultimate, I'm going to show up level 2, and I've got the most power I can get. So they get a free red buff here. I actually don't remember if it ends up in a 3 buff. Lee Sin in general is always going to prefer to stay away from Unfleek, but this, with the information they got at level 1, is a really good path. Only now do they get the information. SKT was shallow, and you might say, why is the brush, so why is the ward in the Scuttle Crab area so shallow? It's because you can't challenge Sandbox at level 1. In solo queue, everyone runs the pixel brush, which is the brush kind of to the left of where you see the red Scuttle icon on the minimap. You just rush there, and yes, sometimes someone's cheese camping as a 4-man, but that's the brush where everyone gets vision at 120. In competitive play, if the enemy team has Braum, Lucian, Galio, you can't go there. Like, it's too scary to go there if you are SKT. You have to be respectful. So you put down a shallow ward, which gets you Scuttle timing, but it doesn't scout out the path the Sandbox took. So this is a really smart jungle path from Unfleek, red to red, because he can fall back to the Scuttle, still get it. He knows that he's not going to be spotted in vision because they scouted out the pixel brush as the game goes on. So really clever from it, Sandbox. And another sign that they're really good in the early game. I think I said blue to red, but yeah, red to red. Big buff to big buff is what I wanted you to see. And now, yeah, Sandbox end up with a 3 buff. They get all the big buffs here. You're also playing to your jungle item. If you're going to just take big camps, start Machete. If you're going to go for AoE camps, or what the flexibility to take AoE camps, go for the Talisman. If you don't have Talisman, don't bother taking the Raptors or the Krugs early game, because, yeah, you just, not a hope in hell to not just die to those. Even Jarvan, after all the little buffs, will basically die to them at level 2, level 3, so nice little pathing here from Unfleek is what's separating them here. And already in this, what we called early game arms race when it comes to the team names and just how they've been winning recently, really liking what I've seen from Sandbox. But SKT haven't lost out in any big ways. Actually, a head and CS in the mid lane. Only loss is 2 jungle camps to Unfleek. Good ping out from Unfleek. Pings out the jungle camp that was taken, or the rough spot on the back. First roam comes through from Dove. He's just coming out to put down a ward. They're doing a really good job of curtailing Clid. And our suspicion when we were watching SKT earlier in the season was to say that Clid seemed to be the tempo setter for SKT in wins and losses. And while a lot of the focus has been on specifically Khan and how much better he's performing, I think that's more about where Clid's time is being used rather than just like, okay, now suddenly we remembered that Khan can play carry champions. Like, for sure they knew that already, right? There's a question in the chat from Princess Master. Couldn't Clid start red? You want to start a path that gets you to bot lane because you're so afraid of Lucian, Braum, Jarvan. So you naturally want a path up to down usually. So that's why he started top side, was to start a path that leads to level 3 near bot lane. So his path was probably going to be blue wolves, red Krugs, level 3. But didn't get the level 3, didn't get the red. I think it's overall just a really smart choice from Unfleek. And he's just spotted on the camps. This is really good early jungling. And again, so our suspicion, being the League of Legends Sherlock Holmes that we try to be, was that it was going to be Clid and his tempo setting that allowed his lanes to play around him well. So Clid has been the biggest loser here. He's been pinged out. It's like almost clairvoyance in every camp going on in this game. Season 1 strats. Coming back in a big way. Predictably, Summit's level 6, and with Tiamat gets to push, and they're just running around Clid. Let's see how Clid tries to reclaim. This is a solo attempt to reclaim. Do notice that Joker has used his first back timing to invade and make the counter jungling, which they already had vision for, more reliable. And Rakan is instead just trying to fight for bot side, try to split the map rather than try to fight with his jungle there. They don't have full knowledge of where Joker is going. Xayah and Rakan were picked to kind of play 2v2 together rather than to roam in this particular game because of all the attention put to bot, and that tells you the draft plan has come together. It tells you that Sandbox are making SKT march to the beat of their drum, corralling them into predictable jungle camp order and in general just to spots on the map where they feel comfortable with. And this all means if you get that mid-game lead and you get to unleash your champions before the enemy can match power spikes. So I think Vlad only outscales in the 1v1 much later than you'd expect, but even in terms of like teamfight impact, I'm thinking 3.5 items. Mid lane is very much going to be a wash when it comes to Lissandra versus Galio. They're going to be probably going down similar build paths. But bot lane, obviously Lucian has a pretty cheap 2-item power spike that also opens up Jarvan and Aurelia damage with the Black Cleaver. And Xayah takes a lot more time to get going. So very much we like the early to mid game here for Sandbox. They've already been proactive, so we like their macro as well. And we're kind of waiting for them to keep following up the logic and appreciating how smart a ward line they're getting. In the time where Rakan didn't counter roam topside, they do get control ward to match onto Ocean Drake to stop that being a snowballing objective for Sandbox. It should be free after the 4 champions they locked in and the Lucian Braum lock in. Might still be free. But they feel scared, and this is the one spot in the first 8 minutes that SKT have fought back in terms of map control. They've been able to stop Drake being free. The first 4 picks were Lucian Braum, and they banned champions against that in the second round. And then Jarvan Galio. Like, this team goes bot lane so well, and bot lane has a pressure lead. They're able to push in reliably because of those globals and that threat. Therefore, bot lane objective in Ocean Drake should be a freebie. Putting down the control ward meant Lee Sin didn't have Rakan backing him up, but it does mean that the Ocean Drake isn't being soloed at pre-9 minutes. So nice little moment there for SKT, and that something they did this game actually means something for kind of the first time. Previously, it was just kind of where OnFleek wanted to go. OnFleek clears the control ward. Still doesn't start it, right? Clid transfers his power. They spot here. SKT are doing a really good job. And this is the defensive macro I'm talking about. There's so many things you can do. But going all the way back to when the lane issue started, Rakan had gone bot lane, put down a control ward, and in all this time where Sandbox is significantly stronger, they're making the right map moves. They get the top side scuttle, and notice Clid goes instantly bot side. Doesn't care that he's scouted. He knows what's going on here. He saw him leave. He knows that Sandbox want the free Ocean Drake they drafted for and they played for early. They're not going to get it. And Khan just going safety first in the 1v1. Just doesn't want to die. So this is what I mean by defensive macro. This is SKT saying, we can't fight those champs, especially bot side, with the 3v3s and 4v4s available. Hats off to you, Sandbox coach. You drafted a better early mid-game fighting comp. But that doesn't mean we have to give away freebies. It means we have to think about bloodless ways to create enough doubt that free objectives aren't given to the enemy when they should theoretically have them. And that's what SKT have been able to do. It works till it doesn't. We know that Sandbox finds a big lead soon. So we'll continue to tend forwards and see what creates that. OnFleek sussing out the Drake. Notice still no Drake taken. So we're 10 minutes 38 in. So when it comes to the early game team, notice that they have, I believe, no turret plates. It's either one or none. So no turret plates, no Drake, no gold lead. Like, SKT have played very well to not give up anything in this early game. But we know it turns, and we get to find out why. You see EQs like that from OnFleek, and you're like, oh, I don't know. I'm not seeing much there. And, you know, I just spent the whole of Series 1, and in general, you've heard me criticize defensive macro because I don't believe it can be played. I don't think many teams can play it well. And I feel like it's abusable. In some ways, Sandbox have abused it, and they will be able to abuse it soon. Like, I feel like the payoff isn't there in this meta with the lack of wards and the champions that are strong. But it doesn't mean it's not playable ever. And SKT are a really strong team when it comes to putting in pre-match plans and being able to actually play them out. Like, I think their draft gets away from them, but I think games like this remind you that there is sometimes ways to play defensive macro, and they've done a really good job so far here. Clid threatening a Drake, and this is like Sandbox's ultimate frustration of, well, how did it go like this? We did so much right for so long. Onfig's in alone. Let's watch this play as it evolves. So it's just Clid rushing it down. Onfig expects this. Mata has first response. EQ comes in. And Clid actually flashes. Which, there's a chance he dies, I guess, to R. Which type of... It's Cinder Hulk Jarvan. And that's the part where you like, maybe don't flash here. He flashes out. Bot side's brawling. And they're just trying to buy time. You'll notice the mana bar is pretty low. They actually DPS out goes, so well done on that one. A lot happens there, but it's mostly posturing. And in a game where we're talking about Khan outscale, nothing is actually taken. Sandbox get the Ocean Drake at the cost of double summoners on Ghost. And I said this on cast, but all of that for an Ocean Drake at 12 minutes is not worth it. It's still a trade-up for SKT. Yes, you don't get the Ocean Drake, so in terms of noticeable things, the enemy team got the bigger tangible objective. But do notice that on the Summoner side here, Ghost using both Summoners and Joku using Exhaust means that Teddy has a Summoner advantage in a lane where Lucian's supposed to grow a lead. So I actually looked at this and I was like, alright, now there's actually a lane that Lee Sin might want to go back to in the bot lane. Now, Lucian might have to farm it out and go CS for CS with Xayah even when he's at a stronger item timing. And because of that, I thought actually there was a lot to like about how that overall trade went for SKT. So it's an extension of what we've already mentioned is a really nice early game for SKT. So we continue to play it out. Rift Herald is taken. Let's look at the resets here to understand how that happens. We're just coming from base. Notice as all the control was topside. Vladimir goes on a recall. Rakan going to join bot lane. And they end up giving up a lot. Previously, Sandbox had all their control bot side, but two-man invade. They use the Braum here. Lucian with no summoners is actually someone that could die, but Faye could just use his teleport. So the chance of actually being able to punish Lucian with a dive here is not as high as you'd want it to be. I think other teams would have looked for a dive in this case, but SKT a little bit behind, and Sandbox kind of steal a Rift Herald. This is a really interesting play, and I talked about this in live, but I'm going to let it play out and then talk about it. So this is a really costly turret dive turned onto SKT, but I want to talk about why. I talked about it on the cast, but I feel really strongly about this. And this play starts off here. We talked about what happened. Sandbox went to the top side with their support, and their global, obviously in mid lane wave clearing, will respond first. They put down all the wards, they start Rift Herald, and the Rift Herald is killed. And before the Rift Herald is killed, SKT know that they're outnumbered topside. They saw Braum there, right? And they know that they don't really have the ability to chase on and contest this. Like, yes, you have Lissandra Vlad, and in the future, that's, hey, if they want to fight, go in. Press your R button, it's going to be big. But it's not now, right? This is not the time to fight as those champions. And they've been in, like we mentioned, a defensive macro state where they've been finding a CS for CS in a lot of lanes, and they're happy with what the payoff is later. So they're not realistically going to fight here. So we already mentioned the only risk Sandbox took in this setup is that Ghost went bot lane as Lucian with no summoners and Braum showed topside. So because of that, diving him is a potential. Now Mata's summoners are down, Faker's teleport is down. They don't have the ability to like do that instantly. So they got to start something up. So let's watch the minimap here. We're in 1x speed. Lissandra loading up for the turret dive. They want to get a structure because let's talk about this play from just watching the minimap. What happens from the minimap? And how many times have we seen this play happen, dear chat? You see the team that didn't get the Rift Herald go to the opposite side of the map where they know there won't be members and get turret plates slower than the Rift Herald can possibly get. That's what happens, right? You go bot lane and the Rift Herald gets you 2 instantly. We always talk about, the tempo advantage to team with Rift Herald because they got the Rift Herald. And, you threaten to dive, the enemy disengages, and from there, you trade plates. However, let's talk about what actually happens on the minimap from SKT. We're watching just the minimap, right? Mid lane and jungle leave. They come to threaten the dive to trade plates. They're not shown on vision just yet, as we know. They back away, as we know. The extra information is they don't see Joker and Ghost back away. Normally, if you are in a map trading position, you back away because you're going to get more plates topside, and it sucks Lucian's not getting them, but that's just how it goes, right? But they see Joker and Ghost staying, and they're like, wait, why are these guys staying? Like, we've been doing the same play for 8-9 weeks. Why are they staying? Like, we're just going to dive and kill them. We're Lissandra Lucian, go, go, go. Lissandra, say Lee Sin, go, go, go. They watch the control war be cleared out, and they're still thinking about this. Now, I don't know if Onfleek was revealed, but regardless, he shows up at this point. The initial play doesn't work, and 4 kills go down. So, the reason why this is notable is that SKT had a lot of times to update their play. Again, the genesis of this play, everything up to this point, is very standard. From here, usually, you see Ghost and Joker fully disengaged from bot. They walk up to their own inner turret. You chase them around and 4 people whack away with auto attacks onto a turret and get the plates a bit slower. But they see these people change. They also should note that a lot has changed since this moment. 1332, Rift Herald dies. Notice that as they walk up for this turret dive, timer is around 1355, let's say. The Rift Herald was never placed top lane. So this is the part where things get really muddied, and I think SKT make a big mistake. By 20 seconds later, the Rift Herald wasn't put down. Thus, the Rift Herald was not put down during the time when you can get turret plates. So it's not just 20 seconds, it's when in the game is it. It's 1350, and Sandbox gave up turret plates they could have got. They could have taken the turret plates, gone top. Irelia would have been at only 1 turret plate remaining on the outer turret, and that plays into their win condition of extending a lead through Irelia versus Vlad before Vlad gets going. The fact that that didn't happen guarantees that Onfleek's coming bot lane. There's nowhere else you're going if you haven't put down the Rift Herald pre-14 minutes. This is not how it works in pro games. You don't accidentally put down the Rift Herald at 14:20 and then slowly take a turret slightly faster than the enemy. You care about turret plates foremost. So because you have empowered recall, you're going to be at the bot lane here. So they have to already be playing like they know Jarvan will be there. Also, the enemy mid laner is Dove, who's in ult range on Galio. So this is always going to be a 4v4. The moment that turret plates weren't threatened at 1340, it's going to be even with a turret in terms of members. And the SKT happy feet. Look at this play. They back away. They're unsure why Dove and Ghost and Joker were still there. They're hoping it was a mistake. Maybe we'll burst someone down. Marta's super squishy. He's no summoners on Rakan. And as we predicted, everyone's there faster from Sandbox. The teleport from Khan is never going to do anything. It's early in the game. This was a really avoidable mistake. I call them unforced errors because I watched a bit of tennis as a kid. Like, how could you be surprised it went this way? It should go this way because the enemy already showed their hand and said, we're not looking for a trade. You will not take down Braum Lucian. And it amusingly plays into the original plan from Sandbox where, if you remember, they drafted Lucian Braum as the first 2 picks on red side. They added a Jarvan to it. They double banned safe bot laners. You shouldn't be surprised that they're not going to abandon Lucian Braum because if you do go for the trade, Irelia gets some more items. Maybe she gets like a bonus Executioner's Calling and can kill Vlad for a bit longer. But Lucian is always counter-rotating, right? Because Lucian had to watch as his tower plates went down. He recalled. He's going to get less gold, right? Because Irelia's getting the gold, and enemy team's taking your turret in front of you in a 4v2 scenario. But then it's not Lucian Braum. If Lucian Braum is going to work, you need your Lucian Braum items, Black Cleaver, and Blade the Ruin King at 20 minutes. Like, if you don't have them on time, your champion kind of sucks because you can't do damage to backline. Lucian is really good at abusing his spike. He's not good at just watching on as the game goes on. So it even plays into Sandbox's core win condition to say, we could have got turret plates. Let's make sure Lucian Braum are all right. Lucian Braum made way more than all right. And then Sandbox gets the bonanza. They stop the turret plates going down. They get the Rift Herald charge in mid lane, which should never happen unless Sandra's just farming next to a Galio. Like, this was Sandbox making a measured call that was both smart. It was non-standard because they didn't just say, it's 1330. I have to get the 320 gold off the charge. Instead, they said, what could we do with what we have? And they make a much smarter decision that gets them a huge amount of advantages. So to me, this is a blunder by SKT because in my I'm an overseer, zoomed out, pausing. I saw it during the cast, which wasn't pausing, but you know what I mean, right? I've got the map hacks. I got the timer at the top. I've got the time to think about it. It's so clear to me that Sandbox is for sure fighting you bot side, but I think Sandbox make a really good move here as well, and it plays into Sandbox's ability to play the early game because they're not just playing the early game like they've always done. They're playing the early game like fits this situation. So big shout out to Sandbox. Really well played there. We can just fast forward through this, and we're close to finding out the answer to our question of why couldn't Sandbox close this game? Because this is a match-losing decision by SKT. Look at the gold lead, right? It's 3,000 gold is the lead for Sandbox, and SKT were marginally ahead around the 12-minute mark. They keep fighting Mudda. They got no vision here, and it's full Blade of Ruin King. I think this play starts off fine. So it's just damage onto Teddy, and then Mudda just kind of dives into his doom. Heals up, but just straight up dies. That's too easy. Like, that's another thing that should guarantee this bot lane turret after they took down the mid lane turret already, like we know. Onfleek walks up. Teddy plays this really well. So, at this point, Teddy knows he can't do anything, right? He's bots Onfleek on the vision. He can't fully disengage at this point. He doesn't have flash up. He doesn't have heal up. He only has ult, so he wants to salvage something. He gets 600 gold out of the Lucian, which is actually pretty big to trade here. So I think he does that correctly, does Teddy. Someone has to give up for a while on the top side. But he doesn't have to do too much because the minion wave's small. Khan didn't have a time to slow push. Dove can come top side. And we get to the very interesting part of the game now. And now I want everyone to have an opinion on this. I'll be looking at Twitch chat from now on. And definitely it'll be something we discuss after the game. But let's wait for the item buy and then try to understand what happens. So Sandbox still trading up in a big way. And this is the point, right? It's 1654. And Lucian has Blade the Ruin King Black Cleaver. And he was who they based their entire game around. They want to play aggressively. They want to take people down. They know they don't have the scaling here. This Lucian is stronger than any two members of SKT. Like, this guy is super powerful. If they group, he's buffing up Jarvan and Aurelia's damage. Has great synergy with the Braum. Like, wherever this Lucian goes, it's, you know, the thank you, Mr. Uzi. Yes, so, Mr. Uzi. Like, Ghost is so strong at this point. And this is the point where Sandbox have been able to do everything except take down Vlad's turret, but the rest of the map is in a way better resting state than you would have imagined. At this point in the game, they get an Ocean Drake down as well. We're looking for Sandbox to maximize what they have. Globals, hard engage, Lucian at a huge item spike. And it's SKT's job to minimize the Lucian and to buy time for Vladimir and the Xayah in particular. So we're going to look at the map state. We're going to look at where the game plays out here. This is a way bigger lead. Like, Sandbox in a vacuum to me is like 7,000 gold ahead right now. We know the real number is 3.7, but they've got a whole lot going on around the Lucian. Now, if the Lucian's not there, they have less things going on. So SKT, notice the Xayah and Rakan with no turret go bot side because they know Lucian's going to go top. That's a smart map movement for SKT. They want to have things they can fight for where Lucian isn't. Because where Lucian is scary. Good point from the chat. Triforce done from Aurelia right now, so she doesn't have Executioner's Calling, so I think her kill threat is actually not that huge onto Vlad. If the lane is really long, you can chase for long enough and you do more damage than he heals, but it's not short lane kill potential. But I like that SKT went straight back bot with no bot lane turret and just had a couple of control wards placed, Lee Sin play around it, and they're trying to find something where they know they can be strong later and just give things over where they're weak, which is where evolution is. So this is smart from SKT again. Because you're taking out a top lane turret, Baron hasn't spawned, and like you're not going to play around it for about 3 or 4 minutes. So it's not like Vlad loses CS here. It's Tiamat Aurelia, so she has to push. And the champion only really exists to push, because with the way the flawless duet works, you're queuing around waves and pushing, so... Aurelia can't cause wave control topside, therefore Vlad can pick up minions. You got Teddy a second item by playing around Teddy, and that means 2 item rather than 1.5 item Xayah, which is, again, another good news thing. Your lane assignment now is to play as if you have a mid lane out of turret and pull back, and the enemy has no objectives to actually make this a bad positioning scenario. And Xayah as a champion, you know, can lift off in these scenarios. So this is a good delay spot for SKT. Their lane assignments have been very smart. I think they've been categorically better than what TL was doing. I thought TL was farming in the 2v2 bot lane for too long. And now it's about how much time can you buy for things to extend. Never1D in chat asked the famous question of, is Longsword for Aurelia really worth it over a control ward? No, it's not. Summit and some other players we criticize for this. Control wards on the map. They have one that does them nothing really, the one behind Galio. They have one in mid lane to... It's funny, but the mid lane control ward being an enemy control ward, like usually you just put down a blue control ward and then you pretend that's the turret behind you so you don't get flanked. This is like to make that an even shorter area. So if you look at the mid lane, there's a control ward just outside of turret range of the inner turret. Again, trying to stop there from being a unscouted flank behind dive onto Xayah. But then if you push a control ward up over halfway through the mid lane, that's to say, okay, yes, you now have some vision you can play to, but it's even smaller. Like, you don't feel strong enough to push up and auto-attack that control ward. Therefore, your control ward's only giving you one thing. It's not giving you full kind of confidence to push out your chest and push up in mid. So it's a really, really technical small point I would never think of in a cast, but I'm just amused by it in this case. Trying to remove the safe places for Xayah to be. You're definitely afraid of Xayah 3 items. Like, when you get Infinity Edge, the enemy team has some backline threat, but it's not AD Jarvan. It's nerfed Galio. Lucian can't push damage onto a backline, and yes, Aurelia can get there, but the chance of actually threatening Xayah through her Infinity Edge power spike when she puts feathers down, like, when the feathers go down, they stun you, there's a chance she turns around and kills you. So it's not that easy to get to Xayah for Sandbox's comp in an ARAM sense. You kind of need Xayah to push up and face check or to not have her damage items done. So Xayah does get really scary, and Vladimir needs no description. And we know this game, again, we said it so many times, reaches a point where Vlad, Xayah, Lissandra run at Sandbox and should win 5v5. So we're still talking about delaying that point as much as possible. The Sandbox, minute 30 till Ocean Drake spawns, not a big Drake. They need a Baron plenty. The moment that you get the confirmation it's the 3rd Ocean Drake, you need to be putting all your vision topside. So right now, SKT, getting that same information, is putting all their vision topside. So they're trying to stop Sandbox Gaming from having Baron threat around a time where you could honestly try running at it. Like, you're not going to realistically kill it, but you have good Baron damage without being fantastic Baron damage. And Sandbox, they're making some of these low roll plays of trying to catch a Lee Sin with flash up. That's not going to work. Pushing in CS onto Vladimir, that's not going to work. Control ward line is good. You notice Jarvan about to path onto one, but because it's Vladimir, it doesn't threaten too much. I guess you could turret dive, but the chance you trade 1-for-1 there are high. And Sandbox don't have Baron visions. I think SKT will take this at every time. They establish vision topside. They kind of leave Khan on a fairly safe island. He's actually safer because he's playing in his inner turret rather than his outer turret at this point in the game. And let's see how Sandbox changed this, because we can fast forward a little bit here. Because this is when you start to feel anxious, because SKT smartly went bot lane where the Lucian wasn't and got the rapid fire cannon. Now they've got a BF sword, and nothing in the game has changed, and the Ocean Drake's not much of a win condition for you. Like, if Sandbox had control wards around an Infernal at this point in the game, 22 minutes in, they would be growing a lead. But I would be nervous if I'm them now. You're getting nothing Drakes. You don't care about third spawn Ocean. Doesn't do anything. Teddy still has his defensive control ward we spotted. Might have been replaced. And is playing as if he has an outer turret. So SKT just continue to reinvest all their vision in smart spots, and now when they see recalls from the enemy, they actually replace a red control ward with a defensive one for Vlad, so Vlad can walk up a bit further. They've got 3 control wards to place here. Do Sandbox. We'll see how they place them. I'm just watching the minimap here and understanding a lot of walking up, trying to contest a control ward. Finally, Jarvan, 30 seconds later, is strong enough to contest that control ward. But they still don't control the Scuttle. They got double control ward down. They're waiting out Scuttle. Let's watch Mada's time to step up. He sees Lucian enter in mid lane. He sees Galio top lane. He knows only Jarvan could be there. But there's actually a blue ping onto Jarvan's location. So Mada's strong enough as a squishy Rakan to walk up. And this is where the control, this is the first one, right? When we see Joker go for his playmaking Braum ults. Like, he's trying to make a Braum ult work onto Flash Lee Sin, Flash Rakan. It's not going to work. Like, it just won't work. But this is where you're nervous, because the Ocean Drake, let's even be simple. Let's pretend that the type of Drake doesn't matter. The Drake is dead for 3 minutes. You know that you get outscaled. You need to make things happen. So they try that there. The Braum ult is already down. They're a bit disconnected in trying to make this play. They're coming on to Lissandra. Summoners are up on all these people, and SKT don't have to fight for things to have used Summoners in the last 5 minutes. Plus Sandbox, where their wards were, they couldn't play towards those wards to get advantages. Like, if their wards were around a Xayah or a Lissandra, or even Rakan, maybe you can blow a flash in the 5-6 minutes. You know, you need a flash cooldown to work around, but they got none. They still don't have any, having used multiple ultimates to try to force them. And Aurelia never built Executioner's Calling, so they're not actually able to force anything. So the game continues, and now, around 25 minutes, you do finally have a bit of control around Baron. But Clid just plays brush to brush. His Q is just an Italy Spear in this case. Check the first brush. Wait for somebody to show on vision. Check the second brush. That's how you have to go. This is the part they wanted to be at, around 22 minutes, where the enemy has to face check, but they could never get their vision there. So 3 minutes have come in, and BF Sword and other items are coming in, and Sandbox weren't able to grow the lead. It's the same lead it was before. But the game's definitely not over, right? Vlad's still not comfortable in his items. Xayah doesn't have an IE yet. And eventually, you stand here long enough, you notice the last blue trinket was used. Someone has to face check something. That's how it goes. That's organized from SKT. Clid walks up. He's the only one. He puts down a pretty shallow control ward. He sees the wards that spotted him and then put 2 and 2 together as to where the enemy could be coming from. Summit's coming from the front. Joker and Ghost are in vision, so he knows what to expect around the corner. He has flash up, so they can't even blow a summoner here. And it just ends up being very... like what we're seeing from SKT here. Again, you might say Sandbox is losing this game because they're not able to hit the side lanes. They didn't get the Drakes to make it easy. This is a hard game to actually move your objective for, because you got out a top lane turret, you got out a mid lane turret, you got out a bot lane turret, and the enemy's not contesting for Drake. So you got many free things. But getting everything in order to take other side lanes when Galio doesn't threaten Lissandra in a side lane, and for now Aurelia doesn't feel strong enough to actually kill Vlad, you don't have any more ways to force things. The only thing you can force is Baron Vision, but that's playing around one objective. You have your item spikes, but you're being predictable. You're always going towards Baron because that's the only place you can play around to force SKT to do anything. And that's why SKT have been very smart at losing the minimum around areas. Yes, they're allowing the enemy to come in and put down vision first, but then they're always communicating, I'm going to walk up, with put down a control ward here, be in, at least in W range. They're not under any threat. You can tell how clean this defense is because they're not using summoners to avert so much pressure from Sandbox. And Sandbox are frustrated. They're just like, please walk up and fight us. We're stronger right now. But this is the counterpoint to we're stronger right now is SKT saying, yes, but we don't need to fight right now, and we're stronger later. And there's Teddy's... Oh, right, so Teddy got 0 completion, i.e., from SKT being responsible and communicating well around Baron. That's already golden. The cost was an Ocean Drake. Imagine that. The cost was just an Ocean Drake to do that. And then now they walk up. Now SKT, who've got some flank vision. They had vision that Khan is already showing top lane, and Summit doesn't have TP. So yeah, Dove is showing top lane with no TP, so we'll need to walk to Galio ult. And Summit has no TP and has left the minion wave. Means this is just 3v3 where they can get access to 5 members faster. That's why they walk up in this scenario. It's a really smart time to walk up because they're also playing towards Teddy having 3 items. And they end up with, as you guys can see, a 4-for-2. And we're going to go over the fight, but consider all of our analysis to why this fight started. The fight starts because Xayah has her item, and they actually know, once again, the Sandbox can't get there fast enough to fight them here. They're going to be outnumbered. Sandbox have spent the whole game going for brush camps, putting down control wards. They have a lot of control wards around the enemy Baron. But SKT, who had until this point, let's remember, spent all of their energy into, it'll be fine, we'll get there, we made that throw bot lane, but let's make sure we don't get caught contesting vision and don't give up a free Baron and get our items going. It snaps. It's 26 minutes in. They see that Dove's out of position, can't get an ult off from where he's showing on the waves. They see that Aurelia may not be showing on vision, but won't be able to get there faster than Clid or the teleport from Vladimir. They know they're going to have 5 members there fast, and it doesn't matter that their vision line is not as good around Baron. This isn't happening in Baron. This is happening in mid lane where the vision line means way less. So this is SKT understanding that their items have changed, thus their power level, their wielding has changed, and also the enemy is out of position and going for a progressive play. So we'll watch this play out, the actual specifics of it. So you start off with just poking, that's fine, but they still know Aurelia is not there. Galio will take a little while to get there, so this is the big moment in the fight. So we go back 5 seconds here. So after the initial poking, Sandbox feel like they can walk in and not lose out in the mid lane. Ghost uses his Relentless Pursuit aggressively. Notice, flash-wise, everybody has their summoners up. And Faker chooses this moment to pull the trigger. Really, really smart. Gets a lot of damage down. Rakan is also there to follow up. Yes, Ghost moves away, but consider where all the pieces are in the fight as this goes on. SKT's strongest member is Teddy, by no small margin. Vlad isn't there yet. Lissandra's on a utility champion controlling space. Teddy just got IE, has red buff, and is under no threat at all. I compare that to Ghost, who just had to flash defensively, he heals early. Meanwhile, Xayah in the backline has just free access to on-flake. Vlad doesn't kill people, but dies really slowly. And it's just about how Teddy is under no threat because SKT play out this fight specifically to make sure that Teddy's item spike is on point. Now, this is sick. Let's go to the slowest possible speed. Glacial speed, right? I know this is hard to see, but let's watch this in the slowest possible speed. Let's look at how much time Teddy had to lift off onto this play from Dove, which is just ultra sick. All right, we have to be faster than that. That's too slow. Let's have a look at how this goes. Because, like, it's still in space, right? He actually appreciates the I'm helping Jarvan ultimate wall in this case. Obviously, Jarvan's dead, so he can't cancel it. Vlad's just trying to make space. We watch Dove on the play. He starts the taunt here. Now he turns around, which of course is when Teddy is aware things can go. If you watch this is sick, by the way. We're going to watch the... Okay, after he dies. Slowest possible speed. Watch if he could actually have flashed any later. I know it's hard to tell, guys, but what I want to appreciate is how late he flashes. So Dove is still ambling. We can see the blood. This is, of course, going to make things very visually noisy, right? But watch the taunt start, and then how many frames there were left for Teddy to have flashed any later. Taunt starts. We're seeing it now. Takes a bit of reduced damage. Watch how late the flash is. What late the ult is, I should say. Literally, we're talking 0.03 seconds worth of time in order to lift off there. That is insanely good mechanics to have your realm. But yes, the moment that he turns around, it's pretty telegraphed, but there it's just beautiful. Like, the way SKT play this fight, as Slow Atlas sounds hilarious, around the Xayah is insanely good. Like, they get the maximum value out of Xayah at the moment when her items are done. With like there were maybe 3 frames at 0.05 speed where you could actually go for the liftoff there and dodges that ult there. And now Teddy, at the time when he was strongest, was served up a team fight where no one could get near him. That's more than SKT could have really dreamed for. They got the extra IE and Zeal item completion from smart defensive warding. And if you're looking at Sandbox, you can't really look at too many moments and say you could have done a lot more. Yes, they could have moved their vision of 3 minutes earlier around the Baron. Maybe that would have changed things. Maybe it wouldn't have. But it's not like they missed out on a set of flashes around the face checks from SKT. It's just, I think SKT played the defensive macro super well, and Sandbox just ran out of ideas. You know, the moment we saw Joker going for huge ultimates, things were looking a bit questionable for them. So this ends up being the big game-breaking moment here for SK Telecom. Like, they get a really big lead from this in terms of where things should have been. Let's turn those off there. Another Zeal done for Teddy, and no longer is there the looming dread of just watching mid lane, right? Watching mid lane be SKT playing towards a control ward and then kiting towards the Baron. That game state is over now. We're into the game state now where SKT can start fighting for things. They know that they have a huge Xayah. They know that Vladimir is much closer to 10,000 gold, right? Like, yes, significantly behind, but not at the stage or to the level that we saw from Impact in our first review of the night. And now this gold lead, that the scale here is relevant. 5,000 gold lead is significant, right? Defensive macro is what got them through this gold disadvantage. So big shout out to SKT. Something they haven't had to do much in their win streak has been fight back from a disadvantage. They've been inflicting disadvantages on the enemy. So it was actually pretty significant for me in live to see SKT play from behind so well. That's something that 3 years ago you would assume was something that SKT was great at, but last year, even this year, it hasn't been a strong part of their game plan. Good to see that from SKT around that area. And now Sandbox are trying creative things. You know, they're looking around, but they don't have the same sheer map advantage. SKT are still able to sneak in things like the Rift Scuttle and the gold lead now. It's just 2,500. So look at this. Xayah has an item lead over the Lucian. Remember that at 16 minutes, Lucian had Blade the Ruined King Black Cleaver done. And now he has an item disadvantage against the Xayah because Xayah has all the kills from the last fight and was able to fight when she was strongest. So I'm always a big fan of knowing where your bread is buttered, knowing where and when you'll be strong and how to get the most out of it. And SKT's last team fight that we watched in 0.5 second speed was the epitome of that. I think it was a bit optimistic there. I think before, when the claw wasn't revealed, that's a pretty good entrance, but actually Sandbox sees the claw after the change that did on 9.4, so don't really know what that was all about. Doesn't matter. another Braum ult. Not going to lead to too much. So SKTC on fleet clear the wards. They know that Baron is going to be threatened now, but it's level 16 Vladimir when this happens. And I said in live, I think you have to burn this. So we're not going to slow this one down. I just want to talk about this decision here. Why does Sandbox do the Baron? They spent 8 minutes of this game trying to, with their item leads and their punishment on SKT's poor dive, bait a Baron. And they can't. SKT are just too good and too unwilling to face check in a spot where they might get caught. And so Sandbox Gaming is like, okay, we couldn't get the Baron the normal way. Then you look at the champs and you see level 16 Vlad, you see the Xayah who just pumped you in the last fight, and you say, well, it's not going to get any better. And that's, again, the correct read. Their champions just get outscaled in many roles. Lucian and, I guess, some in terms of team fights compared to a Vladimir. So because of that, if you don't run at the Baron now when the map state is, you look at the minimap, right? Control ward, control ward, control ward. SKT might have a ward there somewhere, but you don't think so. Like, if you don't do it now, it becomes just like we watched TL like inevitably lose the last game, where they are just forced into their base with 2 inhibitors down and watch the enemy end the game. Like, you have to run at something and try to make something happen here if you're Sandbox, otherwise you just lose. So it's probably the right call to run a Baron. There's no other great call here. There's John Fisser in chat. Shout out to your subscriber. They could do this. Well, they have 3 oceans. They can just keep disengaging the Nash. I understand what you're saying, actually running at the Nash and try to take it down, but the enemy team does have good engage with the Lysandra, and with the vision control they had, they thought they could get a pick there. And I think the Ocean Drake takes a while to arm. I think, yes, you could argue they could try that. We know they couldn't siege because they didn't have a siege comp. I don't think they did too much wrong. You're right that they probably should have just ran at Baron once during that time just to see what happens, but I think they were just trying to get all their ducks in a row, with nameplates on against SKT, and they just weren't able to do it. But this is the right call to go to Baron, and then anything can happen. Smite-wise, Clid's level 13, Onflix level 13. I think you burn it down, and you hope that Joker can interrupt, but Joker's ult is still down from the last fight, which is... he doesn't actually have a way to interrupt, and it's a 50-50 crap fest. And then if you get the Baron here, SKT with Xayah to wave clear are unlikely to lose more than maximum 1 inhibitor and still outscale. But it's still the right call, right? I think Sandbox roll the dice at the Baron. They lose out in the Baron. As the only thing to compliment here is the Xayah, right? The Xayah here is actually sick. So Teddy starts off the fight just killing Braum on the side. It doesn't actually kill him, but watch the ult here for damage and zone control. You don't see this very often. So watch Xayah, under no threat, remember? And usually her R button is a panic R. She's not... She might be under the... Okay, is it to get through the stun? Yeah, okay, it's to get through the stun. So this is not purely for damage. It's an ult to get through the stun. So nicely done from Teddy. Did he have a cleanse effect? Sorry, guys, I have to go way back. He doesn't have a cleanse effect, so it's not purely for damage. He's trying to get away from the flawless duet. Let's get through it again. So he DPS's out. He R's through the E. That part's good. But the feathers here, and the zoning of feathers is something we don't get to talk about that often. Like, he doesn't snap back the feathers to stop Dove running at him. He holds on to feathers, because feathers is... I like to think of feathers a bit like the Ziggs minefield, a bit like other kind of zone control. So I guess a Nivea ult falls into this. As, I mean, even the Orianna Ball, right? It's something that could mean a lot. That even compared, I guess more like Orianna Ball. Like, it threatens a lot, but doesn't innately do anything. If you don't snap back the feathers at the right time, they just sit there. You don't take any damage from them. But he holds onto the feathers. He knows that after the res here, Sandbox can only have increased threat onto Vladimir and Lysandra disengaging through a predictable area, and then gets a 4-man Blade Caller. Remember, Blade Caller has crit damage scaling. Like, this Blade Caller does... I mean, we can see it here, right? This Blade Caller does 200, 300, 500, about 1,000 damage plus. It's really nicely done by Teddy. Like, his ability to play Xayah this game on a pick that has been... I don't think it's ever been remarkable for him. I actually have the ability to look this up, so while this plays out, I'm going to look up Teddy's Xayah win rate. I mean, he was on Jin Air, right? So none of his win rates are particularly fantastic. So we'll check it. Teddy is... let's find Xayah. 11-11, so 50% win rate on Xayah in his career. I don't remember him being a remarkable Xayah player. And the reason why I say that is that if I think about remarkable Xayah players, probably in Korea the best we had was Bang. Bang loved to play Xayah Pike with effort, and I thought his Xayah was actually really strong. But the best Xayah player we had around the world was Uzi. Like, Uzi's ability to play Xayah out of meta in some ways, specifically around... I guess I'm thinking of Asia Games and just in summer and even spring finals, and make a champion that you didn't think of as a goddess of damage, put out insane damage, was something to really compliment. Like, Uzi's Xayah was really, really next level, and you never felt a damage fall off compared to another 3 to 5 item carry. And this was one of those games where you see the maximum at which a Xayah can be played, and you just look back in awe. Like, Teddy was unbelievable in this game in terms of how he played out the fights. So, big shout out to Teddy in this one. And now SKT have Baron, and there's really not too many great ways to play. Like, Vladimir's hit a stabilizing point against the Aurelia. Aurelia already building for team fights a bit with GA into the Spectre's Cowl. So, kind of just suddenly everything you worked for, it's as if the early game never happened and the SKT just farmed it out and then were able to show up with their items. Like, the early game no longer matters. The 4 Drake stats maybe mean something at an Elder Dragon fight, but realistically not too much. Your Lucian's behind in items compared to a Xayah, which is like insane with how this game started. Remember 1657, it was Blade the Ruin King, Black Cleaver, Lucian. But the stabilizing SKT did just bypass that entire time. It's not impossible for Sandbox to win a fight, but we just don't see Vladimir at 3.5 item lose in Korea. And the Sandbox team is so short-ranged, and they have no kill threat in the Aurelia lane, that there's nothing they can do except team fight, and then you have to assume Vladimir is going to be the team fight win button. Yeah, it looked like a really good moment for the side of Sandbox, but seeing team fights like this, like, how do you ever have threat onto Teddy is the problem you have. So you just watch Teddy. Teddy will be the one who wins or loses you fights. He's in the middle of the fight. He eventually has to cleanse flash out, but then he has pass-through damage onto the enemy. With the feathers, the enemy does not. Lucian can't actually put out any more damage and can't get through the front line because the front line's threatening. Vladimir is a really tricky one for Lucian to deal with because Vladimir can kill you and you can also not get past him because he dives. So that's like the best possible fight for Sandbox, and yet they can't trade up in it. Like, we're watching it in 1.5 times speed, but you think about how this fight starts, like Dove actually gets a really sick flash in, and they can pile on from there, and they just kill Rakan before Rakan does anything of relevance, dies with the quickness available. And yeah, it doesn't matter because, yeah, your time has passed. This is very much Sandbox outdated, long have we waited, SKT inaugurated situation going on here. And then at points like this, like there's so few things you can do. OnFleek does the right thing. He actually wastes Teddy's time for so long. But guess what? Khan's got his items. It doesn't matter that Teddy's not in position. Like, once again, I think Sandbox are trying to approach almost unwinnable team fights in the best angles they can. But it doesn't matter. Like, you think about this fight and what SKT get the maximum out of what they don't. They get the double TP to get a flank off, but then OnFleek is a hero. Look at OnFleek. OnFleek runs at Teddy for the maximum amount of time and keeps him not doing damage to anyone else on the side of Sandbox for the whole fight. Like, that's way more than you expect from Tank Jarvan. We saw a Tank Jarvan that couldn't even stop Hylissang from backdooring a Nexus. Because Tank Jarvan doesn't do anything in terms of damage. But the crowd control there was actually the best possible from OnFleek. Like, he played his role perfectly. It was like he was able to tank the damage for that entire time and further because of the Cataclysm stopping Teddy from getting into a fight. But then it just gets to silly situations, right? You just run at the enemy at this point. We're just going to watch them close the game. So what's the chat's opinion on the most pertinent question to me this series, which is, was it Sandbox misplaying from ahead or SKT being really good defensively? Because I think we can all agree there's no yes, no answer. Like, Sandbox could have done other stuff that may have gone better. So we can't know for sure that if they force something there, things have gone better. And I'm seeing a lot of both, and I think you're right. Like, I think there's never any doubt, right? Like, if you play aggressively perfectly, there should be doubt there. But my question to you is, was Sandbox visibly worse from ahead or SKT visibly better from behind in terms of how they played? Like, what I'm saying is, like, did Sandbox make really big mistakes that SKT just kind of said, oh, well, whatever, and then took the Baron eventually? Or was it SKT were really smart defensively and Sandbox needed some, like, next level inspiration they didn't have? It's kind of the interesting one. And I'm kind of 70-30 to SKT in terms of where I put the benefit of the doubt. I think Sandbox didn't do anything boneheaded. And there are going to be people here who say, I think, more Sandbox. And you think about how strong that Lucian was, and you want to believe that, right? I want to be with you right there and be like, no, but 2-item Lucian at 16 minutes, why not? But SKT going bot lane to siege down the outer turret instead of just matching Lucian, got a Xayah item. You know, she got second item there. That was already smart. And I think their communication and just how they problem solved, well, we can't give them Baron, and we can't face check these Brush because there's some very annoying, scary people like Jarvan Galio. How can we make sure the Baron doesn't go down, but also stay alive and keep our summoners up? I thought SKT were really good in that particular scenario. Reformed Empire Sandbox competition was hard to execute just because it has less accessibility. I agree. That was the cost of this pile-on comp. But yet they played it very well to a point. And then I think they played it pretty well, but SKT played their draft defensively very, very well. It was kind of my read there. I'm happy to hear that it seems like people are pretty on the same point. Dragon RNG from Mad Banners, shout out to you, is a really good answer. It's something that Atlas brought up on the cast. I thought it was a very good thing to ask, is how unlucky it is that Sandbox didn't get 3 Infernals. And you're right, 100% correct. If Sandbox got Infernal spawns, I would say their chances of winning here were 90%. But, may I bring up another point? What if it was, in that same scenario, right? SKT players and fans would say, what if it was 3 Oceans? And I feel like what we saw here was SKT's good play had a bigger payoff in that because there's no Infernals, they get away with just playing defensively and just playing one quadrant of the map because of the Drake spawn, right? I think we can all agree there that if there's Infernals, SKT have to play top and bot side. They get caught somewhere because you have limited vision in 2019, and then the Infernals get you over the line. But just like Infernals would have been the thing that put Sandbox over the edge, I also think that it's one of those things that the SKT fans would have been justified in saying, well, what if they were lower role Drake? So you got the low end of the stick here. Like, Sandbox got unlucky. Their job was made harder. You know, they had to deliver 5 newspapers, and then in the midst of delivering their 5th newspaper, they were called and told they need to deliver 3 more. Like, that's unlucky. But Drake's are something that you can't rely on. And thus you need to be extra good at closing out games. You know what I mean? You can't take them you can't assume them. And because they didn't get the Drakes, the map was harder. SKT still executed, but I'm not willing to just throw out this game on bad Drake RNG because I think over the long haul, VOD reviewing this game and working out how you could have won this particular game makes you a better team so that when the Drakes fall on your lap, it's even easier, right? Because you're like, well, we found this extra way to pressure SKT. Also, we had the Drakes, which made life easier. So I think I'm not in the, bad luck RNG. I'm in the setups can always be better and crisper, and then you get cheat codes with certain Drakes, or the defensive team in this case got cheat codes with the Drakes they got. I'll take one more question, and then we'll take a short break and answer some questions and get into our final review. It's going to be a review of IG RNG, the entire series, so it's a lot of fun coming. But last question I'll take right now on the game. I think the first team fight Sandbox loss shouldn't happen. Lucian should know he's in a position that SKT would collapse first and never dash onto Faker. It is a mistake from Sandbox there. But it's also one of those things. The reason why I want to talk about that question is from Anton, HS93. The reason why I want to ruminate on that, because I think that's a pretty clear point to most people, right? Like, we pointed out how SKT had the ability to rotate first, and Sandbox should have known that. Remember that when you play a game, when you play your solo queue games, I'm the same. I think pro games are the same in this way. The game plays out, and then you kind of play to the tone of the game. Like, if everyone's running around suiciding, you're not thinking about how you should have warded a brush. You're like, I'm going to get in there and get those kills. If you're way ahead, you're not thinking about how if you get stunned at just the right frame under turret, you might die. You're just like, if I get this kill under turret, I can buy my IE faster. Like, just like the old English adage, or like life adage that you, what's the word? You live to your means. In this game, Sandbox Gaming had a lot to trade upon. They played a really good early game. They had item leads in earlier spikes that they were so sure of their power that for a fleeting 10 to 15 second margin, they didn't think about what the enemy had and the fact that while they had some strong members, they couldn't get them there faster. It's kind of like when we see teams have a super fed member and then they lose fights where that fed member isn't, like when his teleport is down on a top laner, and then the remaining members forget that actually all of the gold lead is on the person who couldn't be there. In this fight, they, weren't thinking about where SKT could have advantages. They were just thinking about, let's get some kills when we're strong. And it's to me more understandable that happens because the game till then had been Sandbox, Sandbox, Sandbox. SKT had done nothing and then made a poor dive, and Sandbox was strong. So Sandbox felt strong. But credit to SKT for executing and finding a time to be aggressive, because when you feel strong, you puff out your chest and you fight. And usually when you've made a big mistake like SKT, you lick your wounds, You lick your wounds and you aren't as decisive. SKT were decisive, and I want to reward them on that more so than I want to call out Sandbox. I think Sandbox have things to learn, but from the league that I've watched, I choose to index on SKT being decisive in a case where I think a lot of other teams wouldn't have been, and in general being pretty good defensively. Anyways, I'm going to take a short break here, just play a couple of ads, and then we're going to be back with our final review. It's going to be the full best of 3 RNG versus IG. Now, this is a snappy series with a lot of outplay. It's going to be a lot of rewinding, but the game time isn't that long, so I think we're going to have a lot of fun watching 2 of the big legends of China clash. We'll come back with that and a bit more discussion very, very shortly.